Vamonos, like as in Dora the Explorer, right? I'll never forget because my Spanish professor at U of L was talking about how you have to be very careful how you pronunciate it, because if you say like vamonos, it's let's go. If you say vamonos, let's go monkeys.
Which one did Joy say?
She says vamonos, that's correct. Yeah, but she says like if you say whatever monos, that monos is monkeys. So if you accidentally throw in the pronunciation whatever monos, you're going to be doing all kinds of things with or to monkeys. Just be very careful of that. It wouldn't be weird. I'll never forget that. No lo sé, pero me se sacan fotos de los langostas. Ah, qué lástima. Right. Let's talk movement. All right. So, we are in Latin America a culture of immigrants. I say we as if we live in Latin America. Yeah, we're a population. Needless to say, we're Native Americans there, but we also have a significant amount of Europeans and Africans in this area. Europeans ever since the conquest, and Africans ever since the beginning of the tribal trade. We have many different cultures developed there. But furthermore, there's been a lot of movement to and out of this region of the world. One of the main reasons for folks leaving the countries of Latin America, number one, organized crime. This is a particular concern, at least our concern, with Mexico. We'll get into more details here in a minute. Secondly, economic instability. One of the things you have to understand about economics is there is a chain involved in economics. A chain that begins with basic resources and ends with you, the consumer. For instance, have you guys ever bought something like a food item and looked on that little list of ingredients, see what's inside of it? I always find it's really amusing whenever it's like, you look at something that's like pineapple juice, you look at the ingredient as pineapple juice, and you're like, well, I didn't really know what I was expecting. But I digress. You understand, though, that whatever you buy has to be made with something else, correct? I mean, even like advanced machinery, you have to collect raw materials from a lot of different places. And so what happens to those raw materials is as they get moving from place to place, they go up in price. For instance, we talked about iPads already, haven't we? The price of iPads? Did I talk to you guys about that? No. Okay. Do you guys know how much? That's just one. Oh, there it is. I always like to wait for the second one, because you know it's going to be coming around second. All right, so you guys know how much it costs Apple to make one iPad?
Like $5.
It's actually a little more than that, it's about 30. Last time I checked. And they cost how much? Right? That price is going way, 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 way up. Now here's the thing of it is, why is it so much more expensive? Yeah. Well, true, that's part of it, but also understand there's a chain. Can you buy an iPad directly from Apple? Ish, if you buy one of their refurbed ones. That's a whole other thing. Brand new one, not so much. You buy them from who? Sure, a store of some fashion. That store buys their iPads from Apple on consignment. Essentially, they buy a crapload of them and sell them via their various distributors. So, they get them on the cheap, sort of. I'm not quite sure what consignment is for an iPad, so I won't begin to try to make up numbers. But needless to say, it is less than what they're selling them to you, because the store wants to make a profit, yes? So they have to raise that price up. So that happens every time there's a person in between you and the product. Exactamundo. So when we talk about the Sheen Company on Hurstbourne Parkway in San Francisco Road,
Monday through Friday, so 8 Saturday, Sunday till 5, online at ShaneCo.com.
How do you guys like those commercials? That's
And there's one that came on, I'm not the breeze, like, not breeze.
Guys, one of the things I will tell you about advertisement, as an aside, is one of the very real and very effective tactics is to annoy you.
I don't like talking
If they annoy you, you will remember this. And you might think, wouldn't that make you mad, not want to buy their stuff? The thing is, though, in certain situations, it's still beneficial. Because I can tell you, whenever you're a young person and you're like, I found the love of my life and I want to spend the rest of my life with this person, you're like, all right, we're going to close, right? Where am I supposed to buy a ring? And you're just like, where do you go buy an engagement ring? I mean, I think there might be some problem. I go buy it at the Walmart.
Shane Company.
Exactly. And you walk to Shane Company, you know exactly where it is, how long they're open, you've heard that commercial forever. You walk in, they're like, hi, can I help you? Would you like a homemade cookie? Yes, of course I would. Yes, seriously. They're giving you cookies and stuff. It's a great experience. No, oh no. No. Anyways, we're moving on. No, I know, but we're moving on. Here's the thing about that, though, is they cut out the middleman, yeah? That's what they say in their commercials. Why? Because they're their own jeweler. They buy the diamonds, they take them and give them to you. That doesn't mean they're charging you less. Not really, because that's not how it works. But that's allegedly what's going on. So here's the deal with that. The middleman, in that effect, means that the person who's at the beginning of this chain, the person who's mining the diamonds, who's mining the gold, they get the very least amount of money for all this stuff. Does that make sense? Because everyone else is raising the money as it goes, they're getting the least of that amount. Guess what Latin America tends to produce? Raw materials. Not just diamonds, actually most of that's from Africa, but they do actually produce a lot of silver and gold. Now, what this means is their economy is dependent on more developed economies in order to buy their raw materials, but it also means they're stuck in a cycle of producing stuff on the lowest end. Now, there's been a big push to try to develop this. Mexico especially has been trying to produce more oil. And indeed, they're one of our largest oil trading partners. Canada's number one by a long shot. Canada, I believe Mexico's number 3. So what this means is they are trying to develop. However, this tends to lead to our problem number 3, income inequality. What that means is that the money, the wealth that's in the country is inordinately concentrated at one end. Or in other words, a minority of the people control the vast majority of the wealth. Okay? Ideally, in a well-developed and healthy economy, you're going to see more distribution of wealth. A large middle class is what you're going to see. Not everyone's wealthy, but most people have enough to afford their basic needs and some extra. Why is that a good thing? Because when you look at who spends money, the middle class spends more money on stuff than all the other classes. The reason is the lower class, those who are only able to afford their basic needs, basically are spending every dollar they have to try to just stay alive. The very wealthy tend to actually, believe it or not spend that much money percentage-wise. Yeah, they're spending money on big houses and things like that, but the thing of it is, most of them are rich for a reason. They're not spending crazy amounts of money. Look at individuals who do that, you'll see that they tend to end up actually really poor. For instance, have you guys noticed that professional athletes tend to end up actually bankrupt pretty quickly after they stop playing? Because they spend all of their money and goes wisely invested. So the very wealthy don't actually spend all that much money. The middle class, though, they're the ones who drive an economy. So if you're going to have a sustainable economy, you need a strong middle class. So if you look at countries like Brazil, they actually have quite a lot of money there. They're one of the top 10 economies in the world, and yet they have people who are so incredibly poor there, they basically live in huts made with whatever they can find. I mean, that's exaggerating that a bit, for sure. But needless to say, it's very extreme poverty in these cases. So the issue is, this money isn't evenly distributed. And this is why people say they're concerned when they look at the United States and say that this is very middle class. What they're saying is we're seeing more pronounced income inequality, and that's bad for the economy in the long run. Okay. That's enough economics for the time being. Actually, no, that's a lie. There's a little bit more. Oh, iTunes, we don't care. There it is. Now, interestingly enough, immigration from Mexico to the United States is on decline. One of the reasons for this is Mexico has been developing a significant amount in terms of their economy, and there's more opportunities. So this whole idea that there's a massive problem with illegal immigration with Mexico is actually grossly over-exaggerated. Now that being said, it is still a concern, but it's a concern for multiple different countries. Again, this kind of shows that same trend between 1991 and 2010. It's much more stark in contrasting that reason. But one of the main reasons that have been a concern in Mexico lately has been the drug cartels. Have you guys heard talk about drug cartels? Okay. That's right. The drug cartels throughout Latin America have been a major concern.
Oh, I know those. I didn't know what to call them.
Nice. Yeah. Because essentially it destabilizes entire regions. First of all, understand that the government in Mexico has a lot of problems with corruption. Essentially what happens is the police, the government are untrustworthy. They don't necessarily do their job, or if they do their job, you have to pay them to do their job. It's really not uncommon for the police to basically pull you over for the sole purpose of trying to get a bribe from you. And so what happens is people don't trust the police, they don't trust the government, and so the cartel steps in and they start paying money to do basically the job of the police. So in some areas, the people actually love the cartels because they're doing a better job than the government does. Now the problem with this, though, is that we have increased violence, we have increased territorial disputes, not to mention complete dependency on certain drugs. There's a lot of big problems, and violence spills over to all kinds of different areas. This is actually a political cartoon someone drew of the influence the cartels are having on Mexico. I think it's kind of a poignant image. You guys see what's going on in this image?
Yeah, Mexico, and there's drug dealing.
It's what is it? Pinata. What's coming out of it? Right? Skulls.
Oh,
Yeah.
drugs.
Now, some other things that can help to relieve or to exacerbate immigration is these pull factors of better paying jobs in foreign countries and laws that make it easy to immigrate. Is it easy to legally immigrate to the United States? No. You guys know how much it costs to legally immigrate? About $15,000. And let me tell you, they are very, very yes, on the borders. A friend of mine and her husband, who's from Toronto, went to go visit his family in Toronto. When they tried to come back, they denied his entry into the country and tried to deny her entry into the country. Now just think about this for a second. She's an American citizen, and they tried to deny her entry even though all of her paperwork was in order. That's not legal. And eventually they had to let her in because, again, American citizens. But that's how stingy they are. It's not exactly like it's just easy to jump across. Folks who illegally immigrate have a really tough time with it, often involving exploitation, which can also result in human trafficking. So it's not exactly like it's this easy walk in the park type thing. It's actually a major problem for everyone concerned. So there's a lot going on in terms of the issue of dealing with illegal immigration. So there's a couple ways to think about this. There's a couple ways people have proposed to solve the problem of illegal immigration. One idea folks have come up with is make a giant fence that people can't possibly cross, which is stupid. It's a terrible idea, because can you imagine a fence that long? How are you going to guard it? They tried that in China once, and it was an utter failure. So that's not going to work. Another idea is we'll just make it easy to get in, make it easy to immigrate. And that has some merits, but also some problems. Because if you make it really easy to get in, what's to stop terrorists from getting in and blowing up another building? So the short is there's no real easy solution to this. And we haven't really come up with a solid solution to this. Guys, I know you're probably talking about stuff involving geography, but my ADD is flaring right now, so please stop talking. I had like 5 different conversations going on. It's like, I don't know what's going on. So, effects of immigration. And this is just all immigration, not necessarily illegal. First off, brain drain effect. You guys know what the brain drain effect is? Okay, so basically what happens is a lot of folks like to come to the United States and other developed countries for education, right? So that means folks who are coming from other countries are competing with all you guys for positions in our colleges, our universities, things like that. So that's one thing. The second thing is that means that if they're going to get in, they're going to have to be the best and the brightest type of things. So we get the best and the brightest, they come here, they go to college. Then what tends to happen?
They're gonna get a good job.
They're going to stay here, right? Now, does that hurt us or benefit us? It benefits us. Why? Because we get their best and brightest. Think about this. If you're going for surgery, right, a life-saving surgery, who do you want? The person who's American or the person who's best at their job? The best at their job. Unless you're a fool.
See, but
I just want to say, I don't care if I live or die as long as it's American. Think how stupid that sounds. You know? Now, I'm not saying by any means that that person might be upset they don't get a job, things like that, but that's the whole point of developing. If you want to be the best, you have to be the best. Yes? Which also brings me to another point to think about. Whenever we talk about you're competing, right now you're developing your skills to compete for the jobs of the future. It's not just with other Americans. You're competing with everybody around the world. Because the other thing is, you don't necessarily have to work here in the States either. Guys, we export people all over the world to go work other places. You want to see the world? That's a great way to do it. Go live somewhere for a few years. It's a pretty great experience if you can, but I digress. The effect, though, is we're pulling the best and brightest from other countries. That person's not going home, and that country isn't benefiting from their best and brightest, whereas a lot of folks that we have that are best and brightest stay here. So it's literally like we're sucking the smarts out of other countries, the brain drain effect. Instability. One of the biggest problems for a government is having enough money and taxes to do what it needs to do. What happens if you have a significant portion of your population leaving before they're paying taxes? So this is a major problem. This leads to economic instability. Lastly, urbanization. What tends to happen in a lot of these places is as farms and as traditional means of economy are disappearing, more and more folks move to cities. Because there's not enough homes, because there's not enough services in these cities, they can be overcrowded really quickly. We already talked about that, so I'm not going to go into that. Now, another theme of movement we've already talked about is tourism in this area, and generally it's a benefit, but there's also some problems that we already talked about. Lastly, it's not particularly easy to move between the various countries, particularly in South America. Now, one of the things that's been trying to alleviate this is Mercosur. Mercosur is a free trade agreement between the countries of South America, similar to NAFTA. Now, it doesn't work all the time. In fact, a lot of countries basically have stopped participating in it. But it's still there as an attempt to try to make folks work together, and it has had some successes. Secondly, there's some pretty strict border controls. This has been trying to basically keep drugs from moving between countries. But that being said, it doesn't always work. It has, however, made a lot of countries in South America not necessarily get along. And lastly, the major thing is the physical geography is such that it's literally hard to move from place to place. You guys saw in that episode of Top Gear where they had to cross El Campo de Muerte, the Death Road. That is just one example of things that stand in the way. You might think the Amazon River, right? It's a great way to get around. However, the Amazon River is, one, gigantic, and two, there's actually a lot of issues with traveling along that. We didn't actually get to see this because I ran out of time, but in this one particular TV show, these guys are driving this boat along the Amazon River, and like he's basically a merchant. He sells stuff to the native Indians who still live in the Amazon basin, and so like his whole livelihood is he goes on this like 3-month voyage of selling stuff, and has to take everything he has to go with him, and ends up selling all this stuff and coming back and makes a pretty good living doing it. But he has to deal with like weather, with all this other kind of shenanigans. He has to deal with pirates. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff that makes moving along not exactly that easy. So there's a lot of issues there too. To kind of show this idea of income inequality, we have this kind of juxtaposition. These places where people live, this giant wall, and these like tennis courts and swimming pool and hotels, all this kind of shenanigans. That basically is the separation between the classes. The basic idea here is that we don't want our tourists to see the poverty. One of the things that my brother told me, he went to China on a class trip back when he was in high school. And one of the things their tour guides in China told them is you got to be really careful with kids, because kids will pickpocket like no problem. So you got to be careful. If a bunch of kids come near you, the best defense you can have is take out a camera and take a picture, or threaten to take a picture. Because what happens is if the kids get a picture taken of them, they're afraid that you're going to give it to the government and they'll go basically arrest them and throw them in jail. Because, I mean, it sounds so preposterous. The thing is, no, actually, it's true, because at the time, like a big chunk of money was coming into tourism, and if you have a bad experience when you're visiting China from some spin or something like that, you're going to be like, I don't want to ever go to China. You tell all your friends they stop coming to China, suddenly one of their big cash cows dries up, so they're in serious business. I've heard stories of kids getting beaten with sticks because they get too close to tourists, things like that. Not necessarily China, but other places. So, I mean, it's just the same sort of thing. Yeah?
My sister went to Europe last year, and so you know how like there's a lot of people packages here that are like daily.
Which area of Europe? Because I would say that's a pretty. No, I would say there's a lot of pickpockets over in Europe. It depends on where you go.
Yeah. So like, she had to take a bunch of
Sure. I will say that one of the biggest concerns people have when they go to another country is they forget that, yeah, you're on vacation, this is where people live, so don't act like idiots. Like, a number of years ago, like Natalie Holloway, she went on spring break to, I forget where, some island somewhere, and basically, like, these guys like, hey, baby, you want to get this car, go to a party? And like, if that happened here in the States, you're like, no. Which I would hope you'd be no. But she was like, I'm on vacation, sure, and she disappeared. Never seen her again. I mean, how stupid do you have to be? The thing is, people do that all the time. I can tell how many folks come back from spring break like, I got a tattoo. You're an idiot. Not because you got a tattoo, but you got it in some like place you have no idea how healthy it is. You're lucky you don't get an infection. You're getting a needle shoved into your skin. It's like, sure, you're not trust this guy and have it clean. People do stupid stuff when they're on vacation, bruh. Now the other thing, the destruction of the rainforest. One of the things to understand is as we develop, one of the things that happens is we come more and more in contact with nature. And the thing of it is, this can have really negative consequences, not only in the animals' lives, but on our own. This is not by any means tied to Latin America. I just think this is a really funny photo that exacerbates that point. You see what that is? It's a goose hanging out in the puddle in a parking lot. How sad is this photo?
That's very disturbing. Is that on Jefferson?
No. No, but the thing of it is if you think about, like, these animals are looking for water for a variety of different reasons: food, shelter, water. And this is what it found, because everything else is concrete. You know? As we develop, we come up in contact and competing with wildlife. And that can drive certain animals to extinction. You guys know the panda bear, I presume. You guys know how it's going extinct? You guys, true story, without human intervention, they would have gone extinct a long time ago. They basically are such a fail creature. They're so ill-suited for the environment they find themselves now in that they would not survive without us. That's saying something. Most animals, okay, yeah, we're putting pressures on them, driving them towards extinction because we're eating them or things like that. They are so bad at living that essentially we're keeping them alive. And that's one of the things to understand is that we are very intimately tied with our environment. We have this interaction that is incredibly important, not just us, but the animals that have in this world with us. Which brings us to tomorrow's assignments. Tomorrow, you guys need to have your textbook. We're going to be looking at the case studies in your textbook regarding the usage of rainforest land. And we're going to be doing a little project with them tomorrow. So bring your textbooks and be ready for that. Now, does anyone have any questions about the test on Thursday or anything else?
I have a question about this map. I'm sorry, I know. I need to say something.
Fire away.
How many
Say that! Say that! I'm the map. I'm the map. I'm the map. I'm the map.